The 2025 season is shaping up to be an absolute storm. Behind the scenes, while the spotlight's been on the usual favorites, a handful of teams have been silently stacking weapons, dialing in cultural shifts, and rewriting their blueprints. They're not only looking to compete, they're about to change expectations. Who will be this year's Saquon Barkley? What teams will go from second worst record in the league to the NFC Championship game? Well, in today's video, we're going to go over 5 teams that will shock the NFL in 2025. Now, the first team that I think is going to stun the league in 2025 is the Denver Broncos. There's definitely been no shortage of hype at Mile High since Bo Nix's solid debut season, but every shred of it has been justified. The Broncos have been in desperate need of a franchise quarterback since Peyton Manning, and with Bo Nix's arrival, ended a decade-long search for the Sheriff's successor while injecting a waning franchise with a much-needed jolt of energy. The relationship between Sean Payton and Bo Nix developed as the season progressed to the point where the Broncos offense was running like a well-oiled machine to complement their great defense. With the reigning Defensive Player of the Year and Patrick Surtain leading the way, Vance Joseph's unit in Denver was impenetrable throughout the 2024 season, conceding the 3rd fewest points against in the league. With Nick Bonito and rookie Zach Allen impressing up front, Denver's offseason reinforcements on the defensive side of the ball could take them from being a wildcard team to a legitimate contender. Dre Greenlaw and Hufanga are coming over from San Francisco on big money deals. Both suffered injuries late in the 2023 season, with recoveries that did spill over into 2024, which saw limited production on a disappointing 49ers team. If they can get back to their best come football season, the AFC West better watch out. Denver further fortified their secondary with their first pick in the draft, taking All-American corner Jahdae Barron out of Texas. In the 2nd round, they added running back RJ Harvey, who is the perfect high-volume prospect to round out a stable that was without a star in 2024. He will have to compete with the recently arrived J.K. Dobbins for reps though, who significantly raised the bar for Denver's run game. Although many believe they reached for wide receiver Pat Bryant in the 3rd, Sean Payton expressively wants a big body receiver that is an understudy for Courtland Sutton, with plenty of speed coming from Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin. Sean Payton even compared the 3rd rounder to Michael Thomas, which is high praise for the rookie wideout. Along with the addition of Evan Ingram, Bo Nix will have plenty to aim for come September, and this defense won't have any trouble putting the ball back in his hands to let it fly. With Super Bowl 60 back in Santa Clara exactly 10 years after their Super Bowl 50 win at Levi Stadium, who's to say that history won't repeat itself? And now the next team that we're going to talk about would probably not want to repeat their most recent Super Bowl history that they've had. I'm of course speaking about the Atlanta Falcons, who finished 2024 with just 2 wins away from their first division title in 9 seasons. It was a rocky year in Atlanta, but Kirk Cousins was brought in for big money just a matter of weeks before Michael Penix was drafted 8th overall. The off-field quarterback drama would inevitably spill over onto Cousins' on-field performance, which saw the veteran benched following a 4-game stretch in which he tossed 8 interceptions and no scores. Penix was given the reins for the final 3 games of the season and showed Raheem Morris and company enough for the team to rally behind him going into 2025. And that's the thing too, I think with Penix just kind of stepping up in these weird situations that Atlanta had him in, especially learning them from college as well, where he was in so many different situations at Indiana and Washington, I do think it kind of helped him last year. Add in the fact too that their offense looks pretty damn explosive, and Penix could have a breakout year this year. From a formidable running back tandem of Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier to Drake London and Darnell Mooney in the receivers room, it feels like we say this about every season, but 2025 is truly a prove-it year for Kyle Pitts. If Penix is able to reliably tap into his arsenal of weapons, point scoring won't be an issue for the Falcons. But that's the thing, for the past 8 seasons, it's been the defense that's kind of been the Achilles heel of Atlanta. In 2024, the Falcons had the 2nd weakest pass rush in the league, with only the New England Patriots managing fewer sacks than them. They've clearly learned their lesson for 2025 though, mixing shrewd, low-risk free agent signings with high-upside draft selections. D-linemen Leonard Floyd and Morgan Fox were brought in on cheap, short-term deals, and both are veterans with a history of getting to the quarterback and proven production that exists nowhere else among Atlanta's current crop of pass rushers. Then in the draft, they added Jalen Walker out of Georgia with the 15th overall pick, a versatile edge rusher who was one of the most enticing prospects available. They made their intentions even clearer by aggressively trading back into the first round to select James Pierce Jr., who may be less polished than Walker, but stands alone as an absolute athletic specimen. Both men should be able to make an immediate impact and improve even further in the years to come. Atlanta is all sorted out in the secondary too, with AJ Terrell and the recently re-signed Mike Hughes, meaning that they'll be a far more balanced defense in 2025. As Penix grows into this role too, the offense should be able to keep churning in a fairly weak NFC South, and with a big-armed quarterback dishing out dimes in the playoffs, anything could happen in Atlanta this year. Just don't let them get too big of a lead. Now, we're going to go back to the AFC for our next most exciting team in the league, where it's the Cincinnati Bengals. And yes, that's right, exciting is the word I'm going to use here to describe them. The Bengals have a wealth of talent at their disposal, but Cincinnati's front office is simultaneously just kind of self-imploding right now. They could just as easily win the Super Bowl or completely crash and burn at the same time. And I think that's kind of why I want to use the word exciting here, because, well, really we don't know what outcome we're going to get with this team. Extensions for T. Higgins and Jamar Chase have loomed large over the franchise ever since their shock run to the Super Bowl in 2021, and they finally resolved that dilemma by signing the both of them, but it came at quite an expensive cost. Nearly $250 million over the next 4 years. On the bright side though, Joe Burrow will keep hold of all of his favorite weapons on the offensive side of the ball though. The defensive side of the ball though, that's a completely different story. Longtime servant Sam Hubbard retired, but more notably, the NFL sack leader in 2024, Trey Hendrickson, has been holding out for an extension all offseason. This looks even worse on the franchise against the backdrop of Shamar Stewart, their first-round pick who was selected to replace either Hubbard or Hendrickson, is now refusing to sign his rookie deal because of the Bengals' inexplicable decision to void certain agreements that are considered customary. And while it may sound like a fairly big if Cincinnati can get both Hendrickson and Stewart signed to deals in time for training camp, they stand to significantly improve their output in 2025. Not just because of the sheer talent in the front seven, but also a new face at defensive coordinator. Al Golden comes in fresh off of helping Notre Dame to a national championship appearance, largely off the back of his overperforming defense. Golden's vast coaching experience should not only improve results on the field, but also help the defensive unit navigate the unmitigated, just kind of terrible things that are going on in their front office that has been thrust upon them. Al Golden has already spun the negativity around to reiterate how Stewart and Hendrickson not participating in OTAs is actually the team's benefit, as it forces the other players to learn to play multiple positions. And whether that's just top tier copium or we're just being completely just lied to does remain to be seen. And truthfully, I think as long as they don't start 0-2 like they've started for the past 3 or 4 years now, I think the Bengals could be a legitimate playoff team this year. If 2022 taught us anything, it's that once Joe Burrow's Cincinnati makes it into the postseason, they can give anyone a run for their money, and whatever unfolds, it will be certainly fun to watch. Back in early 2022, the LA Rams absolutely crushed Cincinnati's Super Bowl dreams, and after a strong showing to close out the 2024 season, they might just think they have a shot at repeating the feat come February. But this next team though, back in early 2022, crushed Cincinnati's Super Bowl dreams, and after a strong showing to close out 2024, they might just think they have a shot at repeating the feat come this February. You see, despite an injury-riddled start to a 2024 season, seeing LA stumble to a 1-4 record out of the gate, things slowly started to pick up for Sean McVay's men. They came back to seal the NFC West and hosted the red-hot 14-3 Vikings in the wildcard round. And although Minnesota was heavily favored, the Rams came to life at State Farm Stadium, holding a top 10 scoring offense to just 9 points in the playoffs. They set up a date with the Eagles on a snowy Philly night, and although that game will be remembered more for Saquon's heroics, the Rams had a chance to win the game but ultimately turned the ball over on downs. And even looking back at last season too, that was one of Philly's narrowest wins of the season, something that LA can take pride of going into 2025. Since then though, they've only gotten stronger. The Rams did make the tough decision to release franchise legend Cooper Kupp, only to then replace him with Devontae Adams on a 2-year deal. Over the course of his 10+ years in the league, Adams has been relentlessly productive, even through some chaotic situations in Vegas and more recently, New York. The Rams did choose to stick with Matthew Stafford, who will offer a stable veteran presence to steward this offense, alongside one of the league's most exciting young wideouts in Puka Nacua, serving as Adams' understudy. And it really does look that the only way for LA's offense is to go up in 2025. And that's the same thing that goes for their defense as well. Things looked pretty bleak with Aaron Donald out of the picture, but last year's rookie class stepped up big time. Jarrett Verse was the star, winning Defensive Rookie of the Year, while Braden Fisk also was a problem off the edge. They added nose tackle Panua Ford to clog up the middle and hopefully help their run defense as well. LA didn't exactly get the help they needed in the secondary, although in an NFC West made up of offenses struggling to find their identities, they may be able to clinch the division title again in 2025. And hell, they gave the Eagles a run for their money last year, so who's to say they don't get the job done this time around? Now, the last team that we're going to talk about today, though, are the Green Bay Packers, who have broken from tradition in a meaningful way to send a statement to the entire league. The GM and their front office have long been reluctant to use any of their first-round selections on an offensive skill player position. But finally, with the 2025 draft hosted in Green Bay, they ended the wait, selecting Matthew Golden with their 23rd overall pick. Not only is this selection symbolic of their desire to win now, but it also affirms the Packers' mission to build around Jordan Love just a year after giving him a massive contract. A hefty $77 million investment in left guard Aaron Banks should further elevate this 11-win team alongside its host of other offensive weapons. Josh Jacobs looks like he's worth every penny Green Bay paid for him, while the Pack's incredibly deep receiver room continues to produce. Beyond making a statement, Golden's arrival should be an upgrade over Christian Watson, while McCole Hardman similarly raises the bar for Dobbs and Reed. On the defensive side of the ball, the biggest story of the offseason was the release of Jair Alexander. And yes, although at some point it did feel inevitable and was made worse by the departure of their second cornerback in Eric Stokes, the blow was softened by the arrival of Nate Hobbs, who's been a beast for the Raiders and should replicate that form for Green Bay. If Xavier McKinney can match his all-pro output from 2024, the secondary should be in decent shape. The Pack aim to bolster their pass rush in the later rounds of this year's draft too, but it remains to be seen if any of them will make an impact as rookies. Assuming Green Bay improves on their 1-5 divisional record, they'll be a lock for the playoffs, as their only losses outside of NFC North teams came to the Eagles last year. The Pack's 2025 schedule is far from easy, but once they make it to the playoffs, this team has proved that both in 2023 and 2024 that they can give anybody absolutely a tough time. And if they can finally set Love and company up with a home playoff games, who does know what could happen once they are in the playoffs?